Growing up in the pine woods of East Texas, I heard every kind of back road legend there was to hear. The lantern man who drifted between the trees, the woman who walked the railroad tracks without her feet touching the gravel, old Mr. Halcombe who whistled from the well long after they filled it in. None of it ever bothered us. What did bother us was the dark. Not the kind that comes from turning off a bedroom light. I mean the kind that presses against the windows, the kind that feels like it's leaning on the house, listening. Nothing scared us more than that. Nothing except Nana Belle. Granddad never explained her. He just told us not to speak to her. Not about her, not even around her. Which made no sense at all because Nana Belle was always there. She laid out our stiff Sunday clothes across the quilt at the foot of the bed. She fried bacon crisp the way we liked it. She braided my sister Lila's hair before church and hummed tuneless songs under her breath. She moved through the house like she belonged to it more than the beams and nails did. But if one of us said her name, Granddad's jaw would tighten. "Don't," he'd whisper. "Let it be." One humid July morning, my cousin Rowan came sprinting up from the creek, barefoot and sobbing. He said Nana Belle was hurt, said she was folded over in the cattails, holding her stomach and crying like an animal. I ran up the ridge behind him and saw her there. She wore that same long gray dress she always did, fabric clinging wet to her legs. She was on her side in the mud, rocking, wailing low and steady. "Granddad, she—" His hand covered my mouth so hard I tasted iron. "Quiet, Caleb," he said. Not angry, not loud, just terrified. Granddad had never looked terrified before. I called my mother from the old rotary phone in his den. She came fast. She didn't ask what happened, just gave Granddad a look so sharp it could have split him in two. He didn't defend himself. He just stared at the floor. A few years later, Granddad died in his sleep. Heart failure, they said. Quiet as a sigh, the funeral was packed into the little white clapboard church by the highway. All 9 of us cousins sat in a row on the hard pew, knees touching, crying until our throats burned. Granddad had been the steady thing in all our lives. Most of our fathers were gone, to oil rigs, to prison, to graves we didn't visit. Nana Belle sat at the end of our row. She held baby Elsie in her lap. Elsie was barely 2 and didn't understand death, but she felt the grief like static in the air. She sobbed into Nana Belle's dress. Nana Belle never made a sound. When they lowered Granddad into the ground, the adults stepped outside. They left us kids in the church rec room behind a half door meant to keep toddlers from wandering. The only grown-up who stayed was Nana Belle. We all knew the rule. Do not speak to her. The older ones understood. The younger ones didn't. In the far corner of the room, Nana Belle knelt. Her dress pooled around her like smoke. Elsie stood in front of her, staring up at her face. That was when I felt it, that same pressure as the dark outside the windows. "Elsie," I called softly, crouching down. "Come here, Peanut. I got your bunny." I pulled the stuffed rabbit from my jacket pocket and wiggled its ears. My sister Lila joined me. Then Rowan. "Come on, Elsie. Come play." She turned, wobbling toward us. Nana Belle lifted her head. She wore something over her hair that day, a thin lace veil, the color of storm clouds. I couldn't see her face clearly, but I felt her looking. Elsie toddled closer. One more step and she'd be in reach. Then Nana Belle stood. She kept standing. Her head tilted sideways to fit beneath the ceiling, her arms unfolded longer than they should have been. The veil brushed the fluorescent lights. Elsie let out a thin, confused whimper. Nanabelle bent and lifted her in one smooth motion. "Let her go," Rowan shouted, breaking the rule. The veil shifted just enough for me to see her eyes. They were pale, not cloudy, not blind, just empty. She crossed the room in 2 strides. The window above the radiator slid open without a sound. Hot summer air rushed in. She stepped through it like stepping through water, and she was gone. When the police came, we told them everything. About Nanabelle, about the veil, about how tall she'd been. They said there was no one matching that description at the funeral. No extra name in the registry. No woman living with Granddad. They said we were confused, traumatized. They searched the woods for weeks. They never found Elsie. Years later, my mother told me something she'd never meant to say. She and her brothers and sisters were all adopted. Granddad had never legally married. There was no marriage certificate, no photographs of a wife, no records of a woman living at his address. She swore there had never been a Nanabelle. But I remember her hands braiding Lila's hair. I remember her humming in the kitchen before dawn. And sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet and the dark presses close to the glass, I wonder if she wasn't married to Granddad, if she wasn't anyone's wife. Then why did she stay with us for so many years? And who is she waiting for now?